God. I'm back outside again.
So, Frontiers got updated, and Sonic Superstars came out as well, alongside a bunch of other games that I want to play. There's so much blue being released. Next you'll tell me that's the color of the sky. Oh god, no.
Just to clarify wait, how did I get here? Just to clarify something, I'm not gonna do a whole retelling on my thoughts on the game as is. I've already spent over an hour talking about it because social interactions give me a queasy stomach.
My feelings on Frontiers remain the same as before. It's a fundamentally flawed game that I feel had more love and ambition put behind it than the time and budget would have allowed it for. I still get a kick out of loading it up from time to time just to zoom past the planes at high speeds. The sense of freedom you get when exploring is one of the game's strongest qualities. I alluded to this in my full review, but not too long after release, Sega announced a roadmap of DLC for the game, all completely free, which was really nice. I've already mentioned the contents of Update 1, though I will correct one mistake I made. The new Extreme mode isn't just a harder version of the game, it's Sonic Must Die mode.
Just let me do it.
Everything one hit kills you, which basically makes the health and defense stats completely useless. I wouldn't mind this, but it's Frontiers. It's not a well-built enough game to warrant such a strict difficulty. Update 2 added a good amount of stuff, mainly more challenge types like time trials located around the islands. Not too bad to beat, especially when you already have maxed out stats, but when you S-rank all of them, you unlock the Spin Dash. It's crazy to think that it's been 10 years since we've had the Spin Dash in 3D with Sonic Lost World, and it's even crazier it's been 22 years since it's been good. The Spin Dash in Frontiers is a lot of fun to mess around with. I like that it allows you to carry your momentum whenever you go off a ramp. You couldn't do that before this update. You strangely would lose all your momentum whenever you jumped. But now with the Spin Dash and even more customization controls you have in the options menu, you can go soaring in this game. It feels way more natural to me, and honestly it makes exploring the islands even more fun. There are also more Coco to find that give you a bigger boost meter after finding them, and these guys range from fun little platforming challenges to kind of the worst. Like, what is this tower? It's just an assortment of random blocks all over the place. Now, in its defense, humans are also an assortment of blocks. You can tell by how round I am. The longer boost meter isn't really that special since you can just draw an infinite symbol with the side loop and get endless boosts that way. That and the Spin Dash to me is a way more worthwhile reward to obtain. There were also more songs added for the jukebox. Now you can listen to every version of the island's themes at any time, and I am so happy they added this as a thing. I love the 4th and 5th rendition of all the islands, so getting a chance to hear them again while playing is just a great bonus. And the last thing added was a new game plus, so rejoice! You can play this already easy game even more easily. I'm glad it's here. That was one of the things I wanted to see from this game, but I don't think I'll do a second playthrough of this game anytime soon, since I think I've spent enough time doing that with the new update. Update 3, The Final Horizon, was something we've been anticipating for a while ever since it was announced. A new story added to the game as well as new playable characters.
I mentioned in my original review that I was a bit skeptical of the promises being made in this update. I was totally expecting them to pull the rug out from underneath us and be like, oh, the new playable characters are actually Sonic 2.0, who's green now, and not written by a degenerate. Thankfully, that aspect of Update 3 was actually delivered in tenfold. We have 3 new playable characters alongside new story elements, which is really cool to hear since I'm never playing it again.
Update 3 is such a weird anomaly. Even its core design seems like a strange move to make. We don't actually get more story to the game, but instead you are given a completely new ending to play through if you want. Not completely different, but alright, let me explain. The final island in Frontiers is an area that most people agree was probably the one with the biggest budget cuts in the game. It wasn't bad, but the design was standard, it wasn't very hard, and it looked exactly the same as the 1st and 4th islands. This update basically aims to rewrite the final island as well as the ending of the game to A, incorporate all the characters more directly, B, add new, unique, and playable content, and C,
kick you in the ass.
Keep that in the back of your head for now, because the story of the final island isn't that much different than how it was in the base game. You still have to get the Chaos Emeralds and face the Titan, but now you're not alone doing it. Sage discovers that if Sonic were to release his hold on the cyber corruption and share it with his friends, they would be brought back and able to help him cover way more ground. Yeah, do you remember that whole thing with the
superpower of teamwork?
Well, it turns out that meant nothing, as they literally come back 5 minutes later just to help us out. I get that it would be hard to incorporate them back into the story, as their original intention was just to sit on the bench for the whole final act, but I feel they made the switch back way too easy, and it makes the corruption subplot from from the main game even more pointless. It's all the funnier since you could technically select which version of the story you want to play through if you're playing the game normally, since when you go to Oranos Island, there's just a big ring sitting there telling you, this way for new story, next rest stop, 38 miles. So that means they get done saving you in the game, and then you just decide to pull a complete 180 and undo everything. It just feels sloppy. And sloppy, that's unfortunately the best word I can use to describe the final update, because Jesus Christ, where do I start? Okay, playing as the other characters is admittedly a lot of fun to do. If you're not counting Rise of Lyric, then that would make this the first time Tails, Knuckles, and Amy have been playable in 3D in over 17 years, which makes the last game they were in, oh god. No! I'm kind of loving this trend of giving Amy the most unique and useful upgrades to how she plays. She's genuinely the most fun character to play as in this game. She has a triple jump that reaches insanely far, and she can glide in the air with a helicopter of fortune cards. Like, hello, glow up. My god, Yas Queen Slay. Please forget I ever said that. My god, it's so much fun to explore the island with her, and when you get the upgrade to the spin dash and the super boost that turns her into a spinning wheel of death, alright, that's pretty hype. It's definitely a better hand dealt than what poor Knuckles got. Man, I feel out of all the characters, Knuckles shockingly gets the short end of the stick every time. I was hoping that he would play at least somewhat similar to how he did in Adventure 2 with the fast combat and quick movement, and no. His combat just feels sluggish. It's more unruly than Sonic's combat. His glide is fine. I'm not a huge fan of the windup it takes whenever you want to activate it, but the infinite glide you unlock later on is pretty fun to break things with. But why is the turning so slippery? Why is he drifting in the air? There's no friction up in the clouds. And his ability to climb walls, you know, the other feature he's always been known to do since he was first introduced. Well, I hope you like a lesser version of that, because he now only climbs specifically color-coded walls, which is just ridiculous. I can't climb a white wall at all. What's the logic here? Come on! I get that having the ability to climb stuff would be a total hassle to program correctly, but at that point, why bother having him as a playable character? The most he has going for him is the glide, which was already given to Amy and is way more free-flowing and fun to use with her. I am happy to say that Tails definitely got off a little better. He didn't get the biggest upgrades like Amy did, but his playstyle is the least offensive of the group. He can fly, which is once again pretty fun to do. I'm not a huge fan of his wrench attack on the ground. It's pretty weak, all things considered, but it is pretty helpful in the air against smaller enemies. But his super boost, when you unlock it, is ridiculous. He forms the tornado plane around his body, and you can fly around the map for as long as you have boost power, which means when you activate the infinite boost, you can fly at super high speeds for a very long time. These added abilities to the characters utterly break most of the challenge on this island. You see a cocoa chest high in the sky, just spin dash jump and glide to it as Amy. Need to get across the ocean? Just fly over it with Tails' Spirit Airlines. It's just as cheap and dangerous as the real thing. I'm not gonna lie, I was really worried that we'd have to level everyone up again, because holy shit, I forgot how bad everyone is at level 0. But thankfully collecting experience points is much easier, as it's given to each character individually and are given in bulks of 5 or 10, sometimes more, which is pretty convenient. You'll be able to upgrade stuff in no time. Same goes for the Star Shower Knights. Big's fishing portal is now gone from the island. Those sick bastards murdered a cat!
Meow?
That's offensive. Now it's the efficient tokens. You get Coco to upgrade speed, ring counts, etc, etc. So you should have a pretty maxed out crew by the end of the journey.
Honestly, a lot of what you do in Update 3 is more or less kind of an extension of what you do in the base game. You gotta collect certain items in order to obtain the Chaos Emeralds, and how you do that is kind of up to you. Either you find them in the overworld or you play cyberspace levels to speed up the process. So I appreciate they don't try to completely overhaul the game. If you were to ask me what my biggest problem with Update 3 would be, it gave Sonic the gun.
Update 3 is such a pain in the ass to complete. It is substantially harder than the main game ever was, which I know was a common complaint for the game when it first came out, and my response to those people is, learn to shut up every once in a while. That includes you, me. The island-specific challenges are the least arduous of what was added, but they still feel very haphazardly built. This series of floating blocks in the sky, like, seriously, what even is this? Then you get these climbing mazes with Knuckles that are an absolute bitch to navigate because you can only climb on red walls, but not all of them. No, that would make sense. You have these flying chambers with Tails that aren't hard but are just kind of mindless. And then you have the goddamn towers you climb with Sonic. Good lord, what happened here? You know the tower climbing section on Rhea Island? Well, I hope you're ready to climb 7 more towers that are way more treacherous to climb, 3 times as tall, and have no fucking checkpoints. I spent so much time on these sections, and the amount of failed attempts towards the very end was way too common to count. And to top it all off, once you've reached the very top of these goddamn towers, you have to face a trial where you have to fight a set of enemies with fixed stats, or in this case, level 1. Why? What's the point of leveling up if you're forcing me not to use it in an area that's supposed to be a big combat challenge? That and some are clearly way more difficult than others. The parry dogs one is no problem, but the shielded enemy one is so damn precise with a shockingly strict time limit. And this is just the damn towers. This isn't even going into the stuff you need in order to unlock the damn towers like the fucking cyberspace levels. Thankfully, I find cyberspace in this update to be more interesting at least. They're longer for starters, but unlike the base game where you're rewarded for staying on the normal path, the ones here actually incentivize you to explore them depending on their specific challenges. I can appreciate this on paper, and I do feel like they are a decent improvement over the others, but I don't know, man, they still ring kind of hollow in my eyes. The level aesthetics are the same as last time, Sonic's controls aren't as precise as I'd like them to be, and the assets are repeated so often to the point of honest-to-God hilarity. Like, why are there so many cars here? I mean, good lord, everywhere you look, there's always a row of them. Cars when the stage starts, cars stacked on each other, rings of cars, piles of cars, cans of cars. Make sure to refrigerate when you open it. And the extra challenges, well, it's certainly different, I'll give it that, but good lord, they are not great. I like the secret exit ones since some of them can be really obscure to find. But the 5 number rings, you just collect them in order. The silver rings, you just find them in the area they spawn in. The flicky missions can go die. You need to find these little animals in the stages, which is way easier said than done for some of these levels. Then you have to take them to a designated spot that sometimes is in a very precarious place, and you can't attack or touch anything that moves you, or else you'll drop the animals faster than I was dropped.
Why would you do that to me, your 7-month-old baby?
The way these stages are constructed just feels so random and not well thought out. It's as if they want you to break the game in some form or fashion, but that doesn't even compare to the final challenge. After yet another tower climb that thankfully has a quick way back up after you activate it, you are met with the best named character in the franchise, the Master King, just like how I am the submissive fool.
Why do I even bother?
Now I want to give some context. This is technically my second playthrough of the update. I did get to this point on my first playthrough, and when I stopped recording to take a break, my 5-hour recording just crapped out. Nothing, it was completely lost. And I had no save point that I could load to play what was lost. So I effectively had to do my whole 8-hour playthrough again, dealing with all the other bullshit that this game had to deal with twice. As a result, some of the stuff was a little easier, I knew what to expect for the towers and challenges, but it was still goddamn infuriating nonetheless. And it didn't help that on 2 separate occasions, the game crashed on me during the Master King trial. That was fun. And as such, I finally got back to where I was, and I played the final challenge. I hated it. I mean, I honestly have no joke for this, guys. It's a boss rush with the same fixed stats as the other challenges, but now they introduced something called the perfect parry. Pray tell, I wonder what this could possibly be. Well, you know how the parry in the base game was overpowered as hell and you could hold it forever? The perfect parry is now, at least in hard mode, a frame perfect move. You have no room for error when using this. If you don't time it exactly, then you get hit. Add that on top of having to fight 3 bosses where parrying is essential to deal the most damage while also having a strict time limit and also without being able to refill your rings. This is without a doubt the worst part of the fucking game. You can't just introduce a system like this out of nowhere. It would be one thing if the perfect parry either did more damage or had some other ability, but no, it's just the normal parry with strict timing. This isn't an upgrade or a new move, it's nerfing an existing move to make the game artificially harder. Frontier's combat is fun enough, but it is not designed for precise movements or button presses like this. Most of the attacks in the boss fights are not properly telegraphed for this level of accuracy, so as a result, you are basically at the whim of the game's mercy in order to beat these bosses. You need to parry these missiles against Wyvern in order to get a chance to damage it. You need to parry the shield against Knight in order to get a chance to attack it. This is sloppy. You can't just throw in a precise move that adds nothing of value to a combat system that isn't built for precision. Thankfully, you can change the difficulty and each level gives you more time to parry. Easy mode feels the most right to me. You can't just hold it forever, but at least the timing matches the way these attacks were designed to hit you. And after about an hour of trying, I finally beat it and I get a chance to face the final boss. But I see I can finally select whatever character I want to play as. Took a little long if I'm being honest, since the game is basically done, but you know. OCD. So I went through and unlocked the last of the map points with each character and talked with everybody. The thing that's annoying is that you have to go all the way back up to the tower just to swap characters. Come on, that's so unnecessary. Like, was it really that hard to program a quick select feature? Most of the conversations are okay, and I do like the interactions with the characters you normally don't get to see together. Like, seriously, how often do you get to see Tails and Amy talk to each other, or Knuckles and Eggman? I've always thought this is where Ian Flynn shines the most as a writer, but God, if you thought the cutscene budget in the main game was rough, it somehow got worse here. The characters just don't move at all, and their mouths don't even move while they talk. I'm sorry, but was it really that hard to program this? Most of the animations in the base game were stock and repeatable, so why is there nothing going on here, especially for how many conversations there are? Anyway, I completed all the stuff I cared to, and then I went to the final boss. You still have to fight Supreme, and it's still the weakest of the Titan fights. But after you beat him, we face his second form. The end comes down to the surface and hooks up to the Titan. And does anyone find this image just a little funny? It's a giant moon hooked up to a robot. That'd be like a large man walking a tiny dog, or a large dog walking a tiny man. The new final boss, stop me if you heard this before, I don't like it very much. It's obvious what you have to do in order to beat it. Just hit the connector so it stops regaining health. But for some reason, while I was fighting it, I couldn't attack the damn thing. I just kept targeting the head. I know what I have to hit, so why is it not letting me? No. What the game expects you to do is to do this thing where once you've deactivated it, you hit the head once, then dodge, and now you can target the connector?
I think I have a clip for this.
What? The rest of the fight is fine, but at this point, I'm just so tired. I do dig the team up of all the characters, and I don't know, I just kind of love the image of Sonic being shot out of a major cannon at the moon. Wait a minute, Eggman's firing a cannon. Oh my god, he's finally
Kissing on the moon! How do you like that, Obama?
I'm not a big fan of how Sage was kind of sidelined in the climax, though, because here she doesn't sacrifice herself, and I don't know, I felt like that ending kind of fit a bit better for her character, considering what she did in the base game. But it does result in an honestly really sweet moment during the ending, where Eggman finally acknowledges her as his daughter.
You did well, Sage. It's time to head home, dear daughter.
Home. I like the sound of that. Father.
That still hits me in the feels, in a way that's different from the original ending, but just as effective in my opinion. Honestly, from a story standpoint, I think I prefer how the original ending went. It just kind of felt like a more natural conclusion that the game was building up to the entire time. And it also gave Sage more urgency in the plot, and I feel it kind of rounded out her character arc a bit better. But I do like having the friends here as well. I feel like the writing is about as strong as it was during the main game. And seeing Sage being accepted as Eggman's daughter is just a great moment. I guess in the grand scheme of things, both endings could be followed up on no problem, since Sage does come back in both. But I'm a little worried that whatever game follows this up, there's gonna be some weird details that they need to follow up on, because if they're following up on the one where she sacrificed herself, then at that point it'd be really weird if everyone was like, oh my god, she's back, but if they're following up on this ending, she never, like, died to begin with, so I don't know, I just think it would make things a little confusing after a while. And I think confusing describes Update 3 pretty well.
I don't know what the hell to think of Update 3. It's such a strange creation that, I have to admit, has some genuinely great stuff. I love playing as Amy and Tails. They are genuinely the most fun characters in the game. I like that we get more world building for the Ancients. I enjoy the fact that the game tries to make itself harder and more fulfilling to complete. And I appreciate that it's a fairly long addition for a free update. My playthrough is roughly 9 hours, which is pretty insane. Unfortunately, for every good thing done here, There are one or two bad things as well. Knuckles isn't that fun to play as, and he feels stripped back of what makes him so fun and unique. The design of the island feels even more haphazard than before, with no rhyme or reason to how these obstacles incorporate themselves into the actual world design. And I gotta be honest, I cannot stand how much of a difficulty spike this update introduces. It feels like all the dials have been cranked up to 11 with little thought for how it works in the rest of the game. And the final challenge run, it just killed it for me. It felt more like chance than it did skill, and I just wanted it to end. So that leaves me with a tough question. Do I recommend this update with everything going against it? Yeah, I mean, it's free and completely optional. If it's too much for you, then just play the normal final island. It may be way less inspired, but at least I can guarantee that everything will work as designed, and you'll get the ending that thematically works better in my opinion. The good stuff in this update is definitely worth checking out, but if it starts to get on your nerves, don't bother finishing it. It's an optional free edition, so treat it as such.
I know this update is inoffensive since it's totally free and as such it's completely optional, but I don't know, it kind of makes me a little worried for the next game. This had probably a little under a year of development time, and I don't know, man. What we got was a half-baked extension to an island that was already a half-baked extension of something that existed in the game. I guess my biggest fear is I don't want this to extend to the next game. I want there to be a good amount of time and polish put behind it just so we can get a fully clear and what feels like an honest-to-God final product instead of what feels like a beta. But I don't know, man. Like, I don't blame the developers at all. I don't blame the developers at all. I feel like a lot of people have a misconception of like, oh, Sonic Team is doing this shit badly. It's like, Sega keeps giving them these unrealistic deadlines for this stuff, and I don't know, man. Like, if that's the business practice they have, we've got to keep that option open. I don't blame Sonic Team at all for any issues being present in the game, unless it's like glaringly terrible or something like that. So I don't know, this just kind of to me feels like they just needed way more time, like an extra 6 months in order to polish everything out and rebalance it. So I mean, I'm repeating myself obviously because like this part is unscripted, but I just hope that everything is fine for the next game, because update 3, for all the cool new stuff it added, the overall quality does make me concerned for the future. But okay. I really don't want to talk about Sonic for a while now. So I guess I'll talk about something else. Man, you know, maybe I'll just lie here on my couch and not have to worry about a bunch of games falling out of nowhere just to prove an ironic point, because that is such a common occurrence for me. Anyway, I wonder what game I'll do next. Well, that's not nearly as funny.